Hello and welcome to this Treasury Leaders Summit podcast. I am delighted to introduce Tom Leitch, COO from TreasuryXpress. Tom is joining us today to share his expertise on the future of Treasury Tech. Welcome, Tom.
Yeah, thanks very much, and very much looking forward to having a chat with you today and to discussing some finer points around Treasury technology.
The Treasury function seems to face the same challenges year over year without reprieve. What are some of these challenges, and how have the external dynamics of changing regulations, evolving technology innovations, and the rapid pace of business heightened some of these challenges?
First and foremost, what are the sort of challenges that treasurers are facing year on year? It's always the sort of same four top challenges, and this has been reiterated in many surveys and studies across our industry. And I think the four can be pinpointed as cost and business case when looking at Treasury technology and Treasury function. Also, the sort of troubles we have and corporates have of identifying technologies that effectively support their needs. There's always a sort of list they go to. If you look at some of the studies, they said that only 4 vendors are consistently included in 95% of all RFPs. Now, it's not a case of those 4 vendors are the best. It's, I think, a very limiting knowledge reason what potential technologies can provide are out there. Also, there's always been a sort of challenge when you go and have a trade technology or across it of integrating other technologies, whether it be an ERP or an external a trading system or even the bank. So one of the other challenges is technology, and then of course we're seeing more and more sort of struggles and challenges when it's faced with supporting decision making internally, but also the support and decisions, I suppose, coerced by the Treasury technology vendors themselves. So those have always been the 4 biggest challenges, and that's, of course, reiterated across our clients, and they've seen and heard exactly the same, and that's sort of why they came towards us, is we're rethinking Treasury technology and addressing those challenges that have always been in the market but never really been addressed. So we're the sort of new, I suppose, doctor on the market that knows how to heal those problems. We're seeing a sort of big shift going to happen in the new year with regulations such as PSD2, which is going to come onto market, which is, as everyone hopefully will know, is the open sort of banking source of information and technology. We'll be able to plug in via API the banks to our system and make it sort of a lot easier to integrate, get running, and sort of show return on investment and have visibility into your accounts. Other areas are looking at interconnectivity with internal stakeholders and developers. Pace of business has increased and technology needs to be able to assess and provide results faster. Also, what's changing, we're seeing, I suppose, a new generation of Treasury teams pop up. What I mean by that is millennials and sort of younger generation of treasurers are so much used to having technology at their fingertips, whether in personal life or other areas of finance. Treasury has really been the sort of last bastion to hold out any real adoption of, I suppose, disruptive or groundbreaking technology. So we're going to be seeing that sort of move forward, and with the rapid pace of business, a lot of younger treasurers and fast-growing companies are seeing the benefits of treasury technology. And then technology as a whole, the innovation is now, I mean, we have things like AI, bot automation, APIs being integrated in other areas of finance. If you look at banking, we have one of the banks has launched a new AI-driven liquidity tool. So we're going to start seeing some of those come across into Treasury, or they're already in place in some vendors, but come across more and sort of really help with those traditional challenges.
What can we expect from Treasury technology providers in 2018 to address the new generation of these challenges? Or will Treasury teams need to look elsewhere for help?
Speaking as a whole for the Treasury technology providers, I think there has to be a conscious decision to really integrate new technologies. So first and foremost, we can talk about PSD2. We as a company, as TreasuryXpress, have been using APIs for the sort of last 3 years. So for us to switch on to PSD2 is very exciting because we're already in that, we already have that ability. And so it's just simply flicking a switch with the bank. So I'm going to start saying that we can expect to see more Treasury technology providers looking at API and how PSD2 will affect it. So I don't think Treasury teams will have to look elsewhere to connecting with their banks or other systems, because this will then push them to start using APIs whether it be to an ERP, or whether it be to a bank or another external system. I think enabling Treasury simplicity is also going to happen. So again, technology innovation is now, as I mentioned, highlighted before, APIs, AI, bot automation. Those things seem futuristic and so far removed from Treasury, but actually they're quite relevant to address these traditional challenges and are more available to treasurers than we think. And I think we're going to see more of that come into Treasury technology, whether that be as simple as their auto help desk, or it becomes more complex with analytical tools around forecasting or looking at liquidity. So, for example, we've integrated AI into our forecasting tool and also with some FX simulations, so that's already available. It's really sort of getting out there to corporates, sort of educate them of what's possible with, I suppose, a new generation of Treasury technology, which we consider ourselves, rather than sort of the old status quo of we'll connect your banks, we spend 9 months to 2 years getting up and running. We've sort of shaved that right down to sort of a few weeks because we're utilizing these technologies and ease of use and best practices. And because we can sort of see and do these things a lot quicker and use technology to our advantage, I think treasurers will be able to see the benefit. And what I mean by that is because we can do things so much faster and without many physical touch points, the whole cost of these solutions, which I highlighted at the beginning as being one of the biggest hurdles that treasurers face, has been dramatically reduced. So I think what we're going to see from the tech providers potentially is what we call a price war. So we've come in and undercut the market. And I think when other companies start utilizing technology to the same extent we have, it will then open up to all treasurers to move from Excel onto a TMS environment to help them with the visibility and everything else. So it's going to have a sort of trickle-down effect. So TMS providers is a technology provider and not just a service provider. I think we're going to see more of that sort of offering as a holistic approach, where we have to see when we get one of these systems, I think the shift's going to move towards more of help to treasurers getting set up, getting implemented, and being sort of resource for best practices within Treasury, but also best practices within the Treasury technology vendor space. Because often what happens is a treasurer buys one of these systems and they only use potentially 40, 50% of it. And that's not because they don't want to. I think there's been a big disconnect between when a system is sold, when a system is implemented, and then further on from that, of what the corporate has access to. It's because they don't understand how to use it, because the help has been removed and it's a huge cost if they were to go back into it. And wanting to use these systems, they have to go and get consultancy, new training, so it can really add additional cost to what's been happening on before. So yeah, I think that's what we expect from technology is around regulatory changes, how that's going to move technology along into a more sort of free-flowing environment. We're going to be looking at simplicity and sort of aiding and helping the treasurer with AI and the concept of using machine learning and bots. And then also we're going to see a huge sort of change towards making technology more cost-effective for treasurers through what we're doing, through the advances in technology.
You describe a new model and breed of technology. Do you think treasurers are ready for this type of innovation?
Yeah, I think, how do they try? They tried to hold on to the old way of doing treasurers. And Excel is a very good tool, and some of the older technologies were very good for the time. And I think we spent a lot of time educating the market over the last 3 years of what the possibilities are now. And we're seeing we ourselves have about 100% year-on-year growth with our clients. So I think because we represent what we call the new technology, because we have less growth, I think 100% yes. Perhaps maybe not some of the treasurers who are happy with Excel. I think it is a very good tool, but I think a lot of companies out there do want the technology. They do want a system that helps them gain visibility, helps them put controls around, especially with the APIs and everyone wanting to move into a secured payment environment. I think everyone wants one of these systems. As we highlighted before, those hurdles of cost, time taking to implement, everything else is being restrictive. And now that's being broken down. I think everyone's going to jump on it. So I think the early adopters have already come on board. And because we're seeing the high level of growth we think we're past that early adopters and the curve is now fully in motion. So yeah, I think 100% treasurers are ready now to adopt these new technologies, a new way of doing things.
And What advice would you give to clients who are looking to implement TMS solutions in 2018?
Yeah, I think we could probably break down the sort of advice bullet points into sort of 5 of them. I think one of the sort of main areas I would say when customers are looking at potential vendors is really challenge the provider's process. And what I mean by that is challenge whether it really should take as long as they say it should take, because ultimately you are being charged for the hours they're saying it's going to take, regardless if it takes less or more. So I think you really have to look at it with these new technologies. Is its timeline really realistic, or could we advance it and make it quicker? Because I think you should put pressure on them and say we need this in place a lot faster. Of course, there is a way off between do you push too fast, that perhaps there's some holes in it, but I think providers really should be pushed a lot more to get things quicker in place, in line with other technologies in finance. The second point is it's not important just to those that are implementing a new solution, but also to those on a system. So I think we need to look at what the status quo is with your current systems, if you have one, and look at when these are being upgraded or when the renewal is up. Is this the right system to you? I mean, if you look at some of the data that's been published in the past, and we've said before that a lot of treasurers are only using sort of 50-60% of the system, but paying for the entirety of it. Is that full cost really worth you only using half of it? Or are there other providers out there that should be included? And I think a lot of stuff when you do look to go to RFP or talk to other vendors is don't just include the ones you know. Do some research. There's a lot of good guides out there from content providers that show you the systems out there, and have discussions with them, and don't just ask generic questions. Get them to come in and give you a sort of day's worth of their time to look at what the functionality is you want to do, and look at how they process everything and how they show the system. And that's sort of, I suppose, coming in and talking to them and building relationships leads on to the third point, is there's been a huge disconnect between sales teams and implementation teams and customer satisfaction. And what I mean by that is often you obviously get the A squad come in, as I call it, and sell you the system. And then when you come to implement it, you may get D squad that come in and they say, well, what was you sold to you, or what do we do? So there's always that big disconnect between making sure that the sales team deliver, or the implementation team deliver on what the sales team say. So you really have to be sure of, is this vendor going to support me in everything I need? Is this vendor providing the same support rather than just sales to get me on board to moving forward? And that sort of comes along as you've got to think about, is this vendor going to support me moving forward? So is this solution scalable? And that's always a big question, is your needs now maybe X, Y, and Z, but you may have a huge new raft of needs. Maybe you acquire a company or you grow very rapidly. So you have to be very secure with your choice that this vendor will help you at no matter what stage you are. So is the system scalable? Are they going to charge me a huge amount of money? Or are they going to grow with me and work as a partner to help me solve my solutions? So that sort of communication area around implementation and also scalability is huge. And I think also visibility and long-term stability. I think you have to look at, treasury teams don't have the luxury of buying a new solution every year or every other year. So here's some do's and don'ts determining the long-term potential of a provider. I think you have to ask, is a small company the right size for me now? Are they growing? Are they going to be too small to service my needs? Or are they too big that I get lost in a number of clients and they won't actually service my needs? So I think you really have to also look at company structure and company culture. Are we just a number in a large pool, or are these a small company that can help us where we are now?
Thank you very much for joining us today, Tom.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all.
TreasuryXpress, along with a multitude of other thought leaders, will be joining the Treasury Leaders Summit this year. To see more content from them, please visit our website at treasuryleaderssummit.com.